The Savannah River shimmered under a canopy of golden string lights, each bulb casting a warm glow that danced on the water like fireflies caught in a southern dream. Elise Harper stepped out of her sleek black sedan, her emerald dress catching the breeze as she paused on the cobblestone path. At 32, she'd just been named partner at Sterling & Voss, one of Savannah's most formidable investment firms, a feat that had her name buzzing in boardrooms and social circles alike. But tonight, her mother, Evelyn, had insisted on throwing a surprise gala to celebrate. "You've earned this, darling," Evelyn had purred over the phone, her voice dripping with charm. "Let us show the world what you're made of." Elise's gut twisted. Evelyn's enthusiasm always carried a shadow, a calculated edge that made Elise question its sincerity. Still, she didn't push back. In the Harper family, you were taught to smile, to nod, to keep the peace. The riverfront venue, the Azalea Room, was a vision of opulence, crystal chandeliers, white-gloved waiters, and the scent of grilled shrimp mingling with jasmine perfume. The valet tipped his cap and vanished with her keys. Elise lingered outside the etched glass doors, her breath steadying as she braced for the night. She pushed through, and the room erupted. Surprise! The shout hit like a tidal wave, Evelyn leading the charge with a clap that echoed like a gavel. Her father, Graham, stood near the back, raising a bourbon glass with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Her younger brother, Caleb, lounged by the bar, twirling a whiskey tumbler with the lazy smirk of someone who'd already won a bet. "Elise, you're a vision," Evelyn sang, sweeping her into a hug that felt more like a photo op than affection. The crowd, local elites, colleagues, and family friends, cheered as Elise was ushered to a velvet-draped table at the room's heart. Evelyn tapped her champagne flute, silencing the chatter. "This woman," she began, her voice a practiced melody, "has conquered, partner at Sterling & Voss. But she's more than a title. She's the cornerstone of our family's legacy." The word legacy landed like a stone in Elise's chest, not proud, but rehearsed. As if Evelyn were pitching to an invisible audience, Graham slid a cream-colored envelope across the table, his smile slick as a used car salesman. "Just a little something to safeguard our future," he said, patting her hand like she was still a child. Elise's fingers brushed the envelope, her pulse quickening. Inside, a document titled Consolidated Asset Trust Realignment. Her name was there, listed as a restricted trustee, under a clause that funneled control of her $5 million portfolio to a holding company in her parents' names. No discussion, no heads up, just a signature line at the bottom, marked with a faint, deliberate X. Elise didn't flinch. She unfolded the first page, her untouched flute of champagne sweating on the table. The room buzzed with laughter, but her eyes caught on Graham's wrist. A Patek Philippe watch, her grandfather's heirloom, glinted under the chandelier. She'd kept it locked in her home safe for years. Untouched, sacred. Graham hadn't asked to borrow it. She hadn't offered, yet there it was, claiming his wrist like a trophy. They'd been in her house. They'd cracked her safe. This wasn't just a financial ambush, it was theft. Dressed in silk and served with a smile. Elise forced a smile, her mind racing. Something glinted sharper than the betrayal. They thought she wouldn't notice. She folded the document, tucked it back into the envelope, and rose. The gala swirled on, oblivious to the fault line cracking open inside her. They didn't know it yet, but they'd just lost her, and she'd make sure they felt it. Back in her loft, the city's skyline a constellation of steel and glass beyond her window. Elise shed her gown for a worn Yale sweatshirt. The clock ticked past midnight, but sleep was a stranger. She poured a glass of water, its chill grounding her, and spread the envelope's contents across her kitchen island. Under the soft glow of a pendant light, she dissected every line. The language was predatory, legal jargon twisted to obscure, formatted to imply consent without requiring it. The final page stopped her cold, her signature. Not typed but printed, scanned, and placed in faded ink. As if she'd signed it herself. She hadn't. Her stomach lurched. Not from fear but from clarity. This was no mistake, it was a heist. Choreographed with precision. Elise snapped photos of each page and sent them to Nora. Her college roommate turned legal shark. The only person who'd seen her unravel and never blinked. Nora's face appeared on a video call 10 minutes later. Her bathrobe loose. Glasses perched low. "That's not your signature," Nora said, her voice flat as a blade. "Did you authorize any asset realignment?" "Not a chance," Elise replied. Nora's eyes narrowed, her exhaustion giving way to fury. "This is forgery, Elise. But it's worse." She swiveled her laptop, revealing an access log from Elise's investment portfolio. "Someone tried a secondary login under your name. And look, a duplicate profile was created using your birth certificate. But the contact address is your parents' estate." Elise's breath caught. They hadn't just faked her signature, they'd cloned her identity, weaving a legal web to siphon her wealth while covering their tracks. Elise stood, her bare feet cold against the hardwood, and crossed to the hallway. She punched in the code to her safe. The Patek Philippe was gone. As expected. But the real blow was the missing folder, original property deeds. Passwords. Notarized trust records. Not misplaced. Stolen. They were here, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They knew exactly where to look. Nora's voice cut through the haze. "Do you want to press charges now?" Elise's jaw tightened. "Not yet. Lock it all down, my name. My trusts. My firm credentials. No one touches anything without my say." Nora nodded, already typing. Elise called her bank, freezing every account with a calm that belied the storm inside her. She sank onto the couch, staring at the loft's exposed brick wall, now feeling as fragile as tissue paper. This wasn't theft, it was betrayal. Carved from the bones of the people who'd raised her. Sleep never came, but resolve did. They'd written the opening act. But the next move was hers. The gala's glitter faded into the harsh light of morning. But Elise's focus only sharpened. She texted Nora. "Meet me at the firm. Bring everything." By 8 a.m., they were in Elise's corner office. The Savannah skyline framed behind them. Nora spread the documents across the desk. Her laptop opened to a timeline of unauthorized logins. "They didn't just forge your signature," Nora said, pointing to a flagged transaction. "They routed a test transfer, $10, through a shell account tied to your name. It bounced. But they're probing, seeing how far they can go." Elise's fingers traced the fake signature, her mind mapping the betrayal's depth. Evelyn and Graham hadn't just planned a theft. They'd built a machine to erase her autonomy. Elise leaned back, her chair creaking softly. "What's the play?" Nora's eyes gleamed. "We file a fraud report. But we need more. They're sloppy, arrogant. They'll slip again." Elise nodded, her mind already 3 steps ahead. She opened her laptop and pulled up her firm's security protocols, flagging every account tied to her name for review. Then she emailed her assistant. "No meetings today. Clear my schedule." The war had begun, and she wasn't fighting for her money, she was fighting for her name. The Harpers thought they'd scripted her surrender. But Elise was rewriting the ending. And in Savannah, where secrets clung to the air like Spanish moss, she'd make sure the truth burned brighter than their lies. The Savannah air hung heavy with the scent of magnolias and ambition. But Elise Harper's world had shifted since the gilded betrayal at her surprise gala. Her parents, Evelyn and Graham, had tried to strip her of her $5 million fortune with forged documents and a stolen heirloom. But Elise was no longer the compliant daughter they'd molded. She'd locked down her accounts, enlisted her fierce lawyer friend Nora, and uncovered their attempt to clone her identity. Yet the Harpers weren't done. They were playing a longer, dirtier game. And the next move came from an unexpected ghost of her past. 2 days after the gala, Elise's phone buzzed with a text from Lucas Reed, a college friend she hadn't spoken to in 5 years. "Saw your big promotion on LinkedIn. Elise. Congrats. Coffee sometime? My treat." His words were casual, warm, almost nostalgic. Lucas had been her study partner at Yale. The guy who'd charm professors with a grin and ace exams with minimal sleep. But his timing felt too precise. Like a chess piece moved with intent. Elise's instincts, honed by years in high-stakes finance, screamed caution. She typed back, "Sure, name the place. If this was a trap." She'd walk in with her eyes wide open. They met at the Sentient Bean. A cozy coffee shop tucked off Savannah's bustling Forsyth Park, where hipsters and old money locals mingled under exposed brick walls. Lucas was already there, 2 steaming lattes on the table, his sandy hair still boyishly tousled, though his eyes carried a new edge. "Still take almond milk, right?" he asked, flashing a smile that didn't quite land. Elise nodded, but didn't sit immediately, scanning the room for anything, or anyone, out of place. "Let's talk," she said, her tone clipped. "Professional." Lucas chuckled, a touch too nervous. "Wow, straight to business, huh?" She sat, her posture relaxed but her mind razor sharp, watching him over the rim of her cup. His small talk was predictable: where he worked, some vague fintech startup. What he'd been up to, travel, networking, the usual. Then came the pivot, subtle but unmistakable. "So, partner at Sterling and Voss. That's huge. They don't hand those out to just anyone. You managing your own portfolio now? That trust fund of yours. Ever think about rolling it into a boutique hedge project?" "I've got contacts." His words were smooth, practiced, but his left thigh twitched. A tell she remembered from their college days when he'd bluffed through a half-read case study. Elise's hand slipped into her coat pocket, discreetly pressing record on her phone. "Lucas," she cut in, her voice even, "why are you really here?" His jaw tightened, just for a split second, before he leaned back with a forced laugh. "Relax, I'm just catching up. You've always had a head for investments." But his thumb tapped the table, a nervous tick she'd clocked years ago. He was lying, and poorly. Elise kept her gaze steady, letting the silence stretch until he squirmed. The conversation fizzled without drama. She excused herself with a vague work call and left, her pulse steady but her mind ablaze. Lucas wasn't acting alone. Someone had sent him, and she had a sinking suspicion who. Back in her loft, Elise played the recording for Nora over a secure video call. Nora listened, her glasses fogging slightly as she leaned closer to the speaker. "Boost the audio," Nora said, her voice taut. Elise complied, and there it was, a faint whisper in the background. "Female, clipped, unmistakable, ask about the trust, push the hedge angle." The voice was Evelyn's, precise and commanding, coaching Lucas word for word. Elise's blood ran cold, not from shock but from confirmation. Her mother wasn't just complicit, she was the architect, pulling strings like a puppeteer in a velvet glove. Nora's expression hardened. "This is evidence, Elise. We've got her orchestrating fraud." Elise nodded, her mind already mapping the next steps. "We need more than this. Something ironclad." Nora agreed, but her voice softened. "You okay? This is your mom." Elise's lips pressed into a thin line. "She stopped being my mom when she forged my name." The words hung heavy, but they weren't bitter, they were true. The Harpers had underestimated her, and that was their fatal mistake. The next morning, Elise drove to the offices of Wendell Tate, her grandmother Lillian's attorney, a man whose sharp eyes and sharper mind had safeguarded the family's wealth for decades. The waiting room smelled of aged leather and lemon polish, a quiet contrast to the chaos in Elise's life. Wendell stood as she entered, his silver hair catching the light, his gaze piercing but kind. "I've been expecting you," he said. No preamble. Lillian left instructions. "I couldn't reach out until a trigger event occurred." "This counts," Elise said, her voice steady. Wendell nodded and unlocked a mahogany cabinet, retrieving a thick envelope and a USB drive labeled in Lillian's elegant script, "For Elise. If they cross the line." In his office, Elise plugged the USB into his laptop. Lillian's voice filled the room, warm but unyielding, the voice that had taught Elise to tie a Windsor knot, to read contracts twice, to never apologize for outsmarting the room. "Sweetheart," Lillian said, "if you're hearing this, they've gone too far. I knew they might. That's why I built a failsafe into your trust. Any attempt to coerce or manipulate your rights triggers an automatic reroute of the entire estate to a list of nonprofit beneficiaries. No signatures, no court, just proof." Elise's throat tightened, not from grief but from awe. Lillian had seen this coming, had armed her granddaughter from beyond the grave. Wendell handed her a copy of the trust clause. buried in dense legalese but crystal clear. Any coercion voided the family's claim. Redirecting funds to charities Lillian had handpicked. The document was a fortress, impenetrable even to Evelyn's cunning. Elise left Wendell's office with more than paper, she carried leverage. The kind that could end the Harpers game for good. But the Harpers fought dirty. By noon, Elise's phone lit up with notifications. A blog post on a shady local site screamed, "Greedy heiress betrays family legacy." The article, credited to an anonymous source, painted Elise as a selfish opportunist, cashing in on her promotion while cutting her family out. Photos from the gala were splashed across the page. Her smile twisted into something cold and calculating. Worse, a second post surfaced, this one targeting Nora, accusing her of manipulating Elise for personal gain, complete with a forged email chain that looked convincing to anyone who didn't know better. Evelyn's fingerprints were everywhere, her venom seeping through every pixel. Elise didn't flinch. She recorded a video that afternoon. No script, no filter, just her in her office. The Savannah skyline a silent witness behind her. "This isn't about money," she said, her voice steady, eyes locked on the camera. "It's about boundaries. It's about what happens when the people who raised you treat your life like a chessboard. I'm not the villain for saying no. I'm the survivor for standing up." She uploaded it to every platform she could, tagging local influencers and national finance blogs. By evening, the video had gone viral. Not with vitriol but with support. Women across the country flooded her inbox, thanking her for voicing what they'd buried, stories of family manipulation, of trust funds weaponized, of boundaries punished. Elise didn't bask in the praise, she forwarded every message to Nora, building a case that grew stronger with each ally. Her defiance lit a fuse. That night, Elise announced the Lillian Foundation, redirecting 20% of her firm's annual profits to support survivors of financial abuse. The launch was quiet but deliberate, a public commitment to turn her pain into purpose. The press ate it up, framing her as a beacon of resilience, not the greedy caricature Evelyn had tried to sell. The foundation wasn't just a statement, it was a shield, tying her wealth to a cause the Harpers couldn't touch. The blowback was swift. Caleb, Elise's brother, was arrested at a downtown co-working space, his name tied to fraudulent transfers from her trust. The charges were preliminary but damning: shell accounts, forged signatures, and a paper trail that screamed desperation. Evelyn called 3 times, her voicemails a mix of crocodile tears and veiled threats. "This has gone too far. Elise, fix it." Elise texted back, "You taught me every choice has a cost. Pay yours." Graham, meanwhile, showed up at her office uninvited. His face gaunt, his bravado gone. "I'm in therapy," he said, unprompted. "For real this time. Lillian believed in you. I didn't. I won't ask forgiveness." Elise nodded once, her silence louder than words. She didn't owe him absolution. Evelyn's final gambit was a letter, slipped under Elise's door, no envelope, just folded paper. It wasn't an apology but a confession. Account numbers, access dates, how she'd coached Lucas, what she'd fed Caleb. It was raw, ugly, less a plea than a purge of guilt. Elise read it once, filed it with Nora, and brewed a pot of chamomile tea. The letter didn't heal her, it armed her. Weeks later, Elise stood at a podium in Boston, addressing a youth finance conference. The room was packed, teens, college students, nonprofit leaders, all eyes on her. "My family didn't lose me because of money," she said, her voice clear, unshaken. "They lost me because they thought my boundaries were negotiable." She didn't waver, didn't soften. Young women crowded her afterward, some asking how to defy controlling parents, others confessing fears about inherited wealth. Elise offered no easy answers, only tools to ask harder questions. On the train back, Nora texted a photo. Caleb at a community center, a volunteer badge pinned to his shirt. Elise replied, "Not redemption, but a start." Back in Savannah, Elise stayed late at the Lillian Foundation's office. The hallway dark except for a glowing mission statement on the wall. "Real love never demands silence." She traced the words with her fingers, then flicked off the light. The fight wasn't over, but Elise was whole, not the woman who'd been betrayed, but the one who'd risen from it. She walked by the river that night, the breeze sharp against her coat, and paused at a bench she'd once shared with Lillian. The stars above were fierce, unyielding, like the truth she'd claimed. The Harpers had written a tragedy, but Elise was crafting a triumph, one that would echo far beyond Savannah's shores.